This week in Square Up with GraySquare.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Square Up with GraySquare. We've got some exciting guests on today. We will be hanging out with Emma and Jason Criddle. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Last name?
Yeah, man, you did good.
Hey, look at that. Good on me, right? They are an awesome dynamic duo here. So I'll give a brief introduction and I'll let you guys tell us some more about yourself. So Emma, at the age of 9 currently, if I'm not mistaken, is not only a published author whose book you can find on Amazon, which we will definitely get to soon here. She's also the co-founder of her own publishing company. Also has a podcast with over 600 episodes. Much cooler and much more impressive than certainly I was at that time. And I'm sure we can say the same for most of us out there. Jason, along with being a business consultant, is creative director of Smartr Holdings, author, coach, business leader. The list goes on and on. So to start, thank you so much for jumping on with us, guys. How's your afternoon out there?
Good, man. Weather's good. It's been a nice day so far. I was trying to make some homemade kettle corn before we jumped on the air, and I'm going to try that again whenever we're done here.
Hey, there you go. I'm such a fan of kettle corn. I used to go to these events where they had it at the little, they would sell it at soccer tournaments and different things that I would go to. I could eat like a 6-pound bag in about an hour. It's too good. It's a problem. Well, let's jump into it here. If, let's start with Emma here. Emma, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and how you got into all these cool things that you're doing right now.
Talk about your podcast?
Yeah.
So I started reading to kids. It was actually kind of sad at first and cute. So we watched this video of kids opening presents of like water and books and clothes. So I'm just like,
where were they? What's the significance?
They were in Tanzania and they didn't have access to books or libraries. So I decided, what if I read to them? So I started reading, and then it turned into a podcast. And we like to call it Story Time with Emma, I love that name. I love the name Story Time with Emma.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Great. So I wanted to ask too about your book. What gave you the idea for the book that you have out on Amazon?
Okay, so one Christmas I got a book, and it was this design book, and it was like 20 to 30 pages of models, and the other 30 to 20 pages were like instructions, like this is how you draw the lips, this is how you draw the dresses, this is how you do the skirts. So I was like, I want to do a book for boys and girls, because some girls like to design boys' clothes, and some boys like to design girls' clothes. And I didn't want any ideas. Like, be crazy, do your own thing.
I love it.
Yeah, man. So we ended up publishing it's her own design book. It's just a whole bunch of models that kids can draw on. But it's like 200 or 300 pages of empty models. And you can just draw to your heart's content.
Just kind of a clean slate for people to work off of.
Exactly, man. And not trying
awesome
to fill the instructions that they gave on the book that she got were kind of overwhelming. To the point to where by the time you finish reading the instructions and looking at all the pictures, you probably don't know how to do anything creatively except mimic what you just spent half a day reading. You know what I mean?
Right. And so the purpose of design and art and fashion is supposed to be kind of loose and up to you.
Exactly. Taking what's inside you and bringing it out, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, good stuff. Well, Jason, if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit about yourself as well. Some of your background and what you're up to these days.
Man, I spend a lot of time talking, not just on radio shows and podcasts, but talking to entrepreneurs as a whole. And earlier this morning, I was listening to your last episode with, I believe it was John Burr from Mammoth Game.
Okay.
And in the very first few minutes of the episode, he said something that stuck out at me that I try to explain to people all the time. It's the reason why Emma is able to have a successful podcast. It's the reason why I've been able to build a couple of successful brands underneath my belt while helping entrepreneurs. You work on your business in your spare time. And that's what he said. And that's it. And that's so simple. It's like he said it in this one sentence.
Sure.
I've written 20 freaking books, and I've talked at so many seminars. I've written over 5 million words of content online in the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, he said it all in one sentence. Like, you work on it in your spare time. And so whenever somebody asks me, how did I build this? How did I write these books? How did Emma get this podcast with these 600 episodes? How do you do anything worthwhile as an entrepreneur? Well, you work on it in your spare time. And if you stay consistent and if you don't give up, eventually that spare time adds up, and it adds up and it adds up to the point to where, Emma started working on this podcast project when she was 6. She was 6. 6 years
It's out of
old.
control.
And she turns 10 next month. And it's like, it took almost 4 years before this happened, before she started being recognized for it, before she started expanding upon it. But you know what she didn't do? She didn't give up.
Sure.
She worked on it in her spare time, and she never gave up. She never made excuses about it. She never sat around and talked trash with her friends saying, oh, no, I tried that thing and it didn't work. And so they just try to ruin the industry to feel better about themselves. So I guess, man, I spend a lot of my time trying to teach people to work on a project in their spare time. And I've made a living at it. And so I think somewhere along the way, Emma took notice about the fact that I'm an entrepreneur, and she started taking her own things into her own hands, her own projects into her own hands.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So, I mean, I guess kind of an interesting take that I think people could get something out of is, for me personally, my interests at the age of 6 were, I don't know, running into walls and acquiring more toys and, nothing relevant to the world at all, of course. How do you kind of guide or, mentor these aspirations without, I'm sure, as you're conscious of being overbearing, impressing your own interest, on top of, what she's trying to accomplish to kind of foster the creativity without getting in the way too much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man. I guess it's just a matter of paying attention to what it is that they ultimately want to do. Like, what is it that the kid ultimately wants to do? So, if you have a child that sits in the corner quietly and draws to themselves, then there's a chance they're going to be a pretty good artist or a painter. But you look at somebody like Emma, and she sees me actively helping people. Well, there's that one. And so there's been this pull in her that makes her farther outgoing than most 9-year-olds.
Sure.
So I guess it's a balance. You have to look at, I watch these shows. I was about to start talking about this. You watch this show about these pageant parents and these parents, you start to realize that a lot of these kids that are involved in this contest don't really want to be in this contest. And then when it comes to professional sports, which I talk about sometimes, you realize that your son is good at throwing a football. And so you automatically throw him into a team and kind of force feed being a quarterback down the throat to the point to where the kid can get to high school or college. He's hated football his entire life, but he was doing it just to make his parents happy. So you really, what you want to do, I guess, as a parent, is you want to look at what is it that the child ultimately wants to do. Not only is Emma creative, but she also loves to be on camera. She wants to be famous. She wants to be a movie star. She wants to have her own news show. She's always doing all these things to try and get herself in the limelight. And with me being an entrepreneur, she's always been helpful. So if you back up to 2016, I'm helping this nonprofit build a website, and we're uploading all these videos and photos and everything for this nonprofit. And Emma caught on, and it was Christmas time. These kids, like, they were this company, this nonprofit. They were making videos about sending donations to these kids. And so Emma just had this idea, like, these kids love books so much, I just want to read them stories so they can have books to listen to. And so it fed off from there. Well, you know, we get down here later down the road. Emma has a published book. She's working on a couple of storybooks because one of the things she does in her spare time, she sits down with a pencil and a piece of paper and she starts writing out stories. She reads so many books. She loves stories.
Sure.
So now we have another couple of books that are being published this year for her. You know, she'll have another couple of published books. So I think what you have to do is you have to figure out what is it that the kid wants to do and then provide support no matter what the kid wants to do. So if Emma came to me tomorrow and she changed her mind and she decided that she wanted to get into a different sport, she's really starting to like soccer. We're starting soccer tryouts now. You know, she does Girl Scouts. If she ever came up to me and said, "Dad, I want to learn how to play the piano," well, as a parent, then I sit down with her and I weigh out the pros and the cons, and I work towards it.
Yeah,
I guess
that's such a great perspective. You know, it really is, and it's. I can imagine the discipline it takes, especially as somebody who has the experience of an entrepreneur and somebody who's excited for, you know, to have somebody kind of what seems to be interested in following the footsteps a bit, to, you know, restrain yourself at times and be disciplined at times to, you know, kind of give the support that's wanted and needed. I was also interested in, the kids publishing company because I think that's kind of another angle of this that seems like a really cool opportunity and a really cool way to go about not only, you know, her doing something herself for her own interest in what's interesting and appealing to her, but also kind of a platform to show other people that could be in a similar spot how to be successful at what they do. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about maybe some of the goals of the kids publishing company and what, you know, I guess how it got off the ground and what you're trying to do with it.
Well, man, if you look at my platform, if you look at my books, what I write about, if you look at anything that I've ever done, it's always been about trying to help people make more income. I've had a lot of different career fields. I've been in a lot of different fields in my life. I've always found my way back to being an entrepreneur, but the thing that's always stood out on top is helping people. And whenever I get put in positions to help people, I realize a lot of people all have the same problems. And sadly, we live in a world where one of those problems is money. And people are always trying to figure out how to pay bills. And so even with Smartr, I invented a piece of software that allows people to make money from having apps on their phone, talking about those apps. So I've been helping people publish books for a while. And the interesting thing about this little brand that Emma is building and that I'm helping her build, you know, as a father, we're building it together as a family, is it's a brand. It makes income. It gives us something to do together. It's fun where she's learning life skills. I'm learning more about helping kids and how to communicate with kids. And so if you look at all these things that we put together, it was only a matter of time over the last couple of years before we put together some kind of platform to help kids build brands. You know, I see, and Emma sees it too, and you see it, and we all see it. We see so much creativity in our children. But unless they know how to throw a football, we don't pay attention.
Sure.
And so we live in a world today where your kid can become a millionaire talking about toys on a camera phone. Your kid can become a millionaire being really good at a video game. Your children can make a living just being themselves and talking to their friends and being their funny, goofy self, you know, just being a funny, goofy. And that's what our world allows us to do today. And so rather than parents shunning their kids' creativity, and rather than, you know, parents, like you were saying, parents have this overbearing agenda as parents because we feel like we own our children. But we don't own our children. Our children kind of belong to the world, to God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
We're here to guide our children. And so I learned a long time ago that I'm probably learning a lot more from Emma than she's learning from me. And so the kids publishing company is not just about telling kids like, hey, you can build this brand, or it's not just about us having this free publishing platform for kids, for people to publish children's books. It's also about educating parents and teaching them these are things that you can do with your children, that not only will your children remember it as valuable time spent together, I mean, they're going to make you better. They're going to make the world better. You can bring income into your family that you might be struggling to bring in right now. And your children are an answer to that. So let's start looking at what is it that our kids want to do now at an early age, instead of thinking about curriculum and homework and always thinking about the next test or whatever it is that parents are thinking about, just so our kids can grow up to go get jobs and do the same thing to their kids. Why don't we start really paying attention to how kids see the world and help them develop those skills now, so that whenever they turn into, adults, they're not like our generation. Landon, I don't know how old you are. I'm 36. My generation,
33.
we're kind of lost. Yeah, we're kind of lost, man. We got a whole bunch of people that don't have jobs. We got a bunch of people that have never gone to school. They've never been able to go to school. And then you have people that are $100,000 in debt that will never be able to pay it off. Like our kids, there's a chance that our kids have solutions to that. So we should let them kind of take the reins, man.
No, I like it. I couldn't agree with you more on a lot of that stuff. That's fantastic. Kind of an quick question for Emma, if you don't mind, Emma. I got a question for you. So, do you have goals for next year? Like, what is next in the world of Emma? What do you want to accomplish next?
So next year I'm going to start a show, and it's called Little Earners.
Okay.
It's like little learners and little earners put together.
I love it. What is it going to be about?
So I'm gonna get business owners on the show and ask them like what inspired them, what like made them want to do this, like ask them questions about their business.
It's like her version of Reading Rainbow. You remember that show?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. So Emma, do you plan to have people your age on the show, old people like your dad and I on, or just kind of anybody on there?
Anybody.
Okay. I like it. Give some of us old people a chance to tell our stories too. That's great. Jason, how about yourself? Anything up and coming exciting for the things that you're working on for 2020?
Man, we've been building this Smartr platform out. Just really trying to push our news software to the world, to let people know that they can start promoting companies using this software and make money promoting these companies. And it just takes them, downloading apps. But to be honest, man, in the last couple of months, I've kind of gotten really excited about this publishing company, this kids publishing company. And lately, dude, I've been spending all my time putting together bracelets and organizing fundraisers and meeting with parents and kids and talking about the platform and, helping get our first couple of books published. And it's been fun, man. It really made me realize that, I was spending a whole lot of time, trying to focus on, my venture, my entrepreneur path, my endeavors, that, man, it's fun being a kid and it's fun being around kids and it's fun whenever you can just have some time where things are carefree. Like, dude, I cannot wait for this weekend because we're going to be sitting around watching cartoons and making bracelets, like bead bracelets.
Right.
Looking forward to that. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's people out there that can't wait to go to the bar and stay out till 2:00 in the morning and wake up the next day with a hangover. Like, I just want chocolate milk and I just want to make bracelets.
I love it. Times are changing, right?
Right, man. And it's really just, getting involved with this and us making this like the forefront of, what we're doing right now. It's made the house very, very cheerful. It's been very festive lately, even before Christmas came around.
That's fantastic. So, this is kind of an interesting dynamic that you're in with your work doing consulting for, entrepreneurs, startup companies, new founders of businesses, as well as working with the newer generation in the same boat. Are there glaring differences you notice between your traditional, I'm starting a tech company entrepreneur versus the younger age entrepreneur? Like, I'm sure there are differences. Are there things that maybe the average person would think that are so different?
Yes, man. That is a freaking great question.
Appreciate it.
So we talked a little bit earlier about us, like we're the lost generation.
Sure.
And so our parents are baby boomers, and then our kids are like these Generation Z kids. And we're the millennials. Well, here's the thing, man. Like baby boomers, they all had jobs to go to. Millennials kind of got pushed in a situation. Like people say, oh, there's more entrepreneurs per capita than there ever was before. Well, that's because we're all broke and unemployed. You gotta create a company, or you just live with your parents and do nothing. And sadly, we live in a world where those are the choices. And so the thing about millennials is we have been entertained more than any generation so far. And so our parents were working their butts off. Their parents were fighting a war. Their parents were farming. Our parents had TV, video games, cable, and so we talk about how the new generation has access to all these phones. Well, I don't think the phones are ruining our lives as much as the TV already did. And so
right.
Our generation now has grown up on, social media or the social network, Shark Tank, the glorification of companies being built. And so we think that if we have an idea for a tech company, then all of a sudden we are entitled to millions of dollars to have the chance to build that company. But it's not the way that I operate. It's not the way that our parents operated, and it's not the way that our kids operate. The way that we operate in reality is if you want to create that thing, you got to work towards it. And that's it. You can work towards it in your spare time. You can work towards it full time, but you got to work and you got to work and you got to work. And you can't say that you want to do something for the rest of your life and give up on it after 2 weeks or 2 months, and have the audacity to look at people and tell them that you changed your mind and you're going after a different goal. You're going after a different goal. A lot of people have a habit. A lot of people in our generation have the habit of chasing opportunities. They go to a company, they go to a sales position, they fail because they probably didn't give it their all. They probably only did it in their spare time. And then they talk trash about it and they move on to the next opportunity. And then they move on to the next opportunity. And before you know it, you have a person who has jumped the boat so many times that they don't really have the motivation to build something big. Well, our parents built big things. They built all the roads that we drive on. They built all the houses that we live in. They built all the cars that we drive. They built all the manufacturing for the food that we eat. I mean, all that stuff is in place because people built it with their hands. And so we have to have that same mentality regardless of what it is that we want to build. Emma's 9 years old with a podcast. She's read over 600 episodes. There's hundreds of books read on there. There's people in our generation that will never read a book. They will never do something for other people. They will never get to the point to where they're trying to not just be focused on lining their pockets, but do something for other people. And you know as well as I do, because you have this podcast, your business will start taking off once you realize that it's about the people that you are trying to serve. And if you're not focused on the people that you're trying to serve, whatever idea it is that you have that can make their lives better, it's never going to be able to make their lives better because you're not trying to make their lives better. You're trying to make money.
Sure.
I think that's the biggest difference between our generation and every other generation that stepped on foot on this planet when it comes to entrepreneurship. Our generation thinks we're entitled to money.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's an interesting take, and kind of the the servant mentality, the doing for others mentality is something that culturally here as a company managing salespeople and sales campaigns is something we try to pass on, both from let's make sure we're doing right by the customer, from our management team, let's make sure we're doing right by our people, to our executive team, let's make sure we're doing right by our clients. And it's not as common of an understanding as you would hope for it to be, or that you would think that it is just naturally. So it's definitely a solid mentality that you guys have as a group. So if I'm out there and I want to learn more about both of you guys and the work that you're doing, what's the best way for me to find you, potentially contact you? How do I get myself, how do I find the podcast? How do I find the book? Where can I learn about these things?
Yeah, man, about the easiest way to find me now is just to Google me. I mean,
sure.
Relevant pops up on top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny that we're in that world now. And so, but people can check out jasoncriddle.com if they want to get in touch with me. I also have an app called the Jason app. People can get in touch with me through there. It has products and services that my company offers. If people want to check out the Kids Publishing Company, they can go to thekidspublishingcompany.com. Nice and simple.
Yeah.
There is also an app in the app stores for donors, and we have services in there, professional services for publishing, but we don't want our kids to pay for those, so we also give the opportunity for people to sponsor. If people want to check out Emma's podcast,
you go to Castbox.
That's an app. It's
okay. Love it.
It's an app for iOS and Android. And they look up what?
They look up Storytime with Emma.
Fantastic. Emma, your book. If I want to find your book on Amazon, what is the title of your book?
Designs by Emma.
Love it. Nice and simple. Nice and simple, easy to find. Yeah, I did. I actually looked at it myself before we got on the phone here, and kind of scrolled through the couple of pages that you can preview. Such an interesting concept. I'm sure it's doing well, and I'm sure we'll continue to do well as it exists longer and gets more and more exposure. Well, I definitely want to thank you guys so much for jumping on with us here. It's been great getting to know you and to learn about you, and I'm sure there's a lot of takeaways that people that check us out can I definitely thank you for your time, and we will absolutely be in touch to set up round 2. So I look forward to it. But other than that, thank you guys for jumping on, and thanks for everybody listening for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
Absolutely. Later.